Okay, this is part of a playlist, a longer playlist of things you can practice to increase your harmonic vocabulary. I'm going to go ahead and delve slightly into the ascending melodic minor chords and a pivot pattern that I actually used in a sequence, and I have a course on this I'll link right up here on learning how to use the ascending melodic minor scale chords and just the ascending melodic minor scale itself, as well as the related scales like mixolydian and flat six. It's free, so... And this is actually what prompted this practice session, because I always want to make sure I can do every single move I know on every possible route, or at the very least be able to come up with the same exact harmonic sequence very quickly. As a side note, an interesting thing that starts happening the more and more you know is you start finding pivot chords in the most unique spots that you never thought to look before. And this actually has that particular scenario and it works out fine. But before I get into that, I want to go over this reduced to basic exercise that could pivot. Well, it's already done for me because I already did it. Because creating these pivot exercises like this will almost inevitably lead you around in a cycle that could use it at least 6 times in this case before it repeats. Hence, we only have to move it to a different route that's not involved in this sequence. So this is muscle memory. I don't have to think much about this. And I'm not, that's more of keyboard skill. So reducing it even further, I may take out the arpeggiation. It's still too much muscle memory, so I just reduce it to a really basic form, which is just 1, 4, 7, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1 as all 7th chords. And doing it very, very slow. Using pure muscle memory, it doesn't do you much harmonic or good studying harmony using muscle memory. It's a waste of time because you're not thinking much about the harmony at that point. So we're not interested in keyboard skill. That's what I'm writing here. So I'm going to play the example first. Now what I did this morning is I took that specific harmonic sequence that pivoted once from C minor to D minor, melodic minor, both ascending, and then turned it into a continuous sequence that will keep repeating for practice. And I wrote it out first. And that's what... And it's just a reduced version. Right there, the double sharp and the slash chords, interestingly enough, Notion doesn't have that option. I highly encourage writing things out. It seems like notation seems to be less and less of a thing with people anymore. It seems to be more piano roll and keyboards. Too much emphasis on keyboard skill. So let me just break this down. C minor, G7, A half diminished, G, which is the ascending version of C melodic minor chords. Interestingly enough, that G chord is also the 4 of D melodic minor. This is where seeing these new interesting pivot locations starts to happen the more you get into harmony. That you never used to see. It starts to happen all the time. So now what I would do is I'd start it on C sharp minor now, because now I'm just going to do the keyboard version. So now this is the keyboard practice. You want to practice all of them on the keyboard as well, but you want to write them out as well. That's why I did the first one as written out. I'm just going through the cycle now. And you'll eventually repeat. on the C sharp minor. So it repeats 6 times, that's why you have to move it up. And you'll notice in this sequence that this half diminished chord can resolve a whole step down to a major chord. You could actually use this in place of a dominant chord in regular key music, as literally substitute it for the dominant chord. Let's just play something in A major since that's where I did the... So it's an alternate cadence chord. In fact, I want to show specific moves that use, or specific parts that use that as a final cadence. I use it in this, it's in my film score playlist, this end of this sequence. So right there, when the big cadence came up, it was that half diminished move down a whole step to a major chord, just like in this melodic minor sequence. So I could completely bypass the 5 chord and have a very strong emotional cadence. That's what to take away from that. And it's right here in this melodic minor sequence as the second to last chord in each case. You can also use it in your chromatic modulation, and I'll show you a specific, let me just play it back for you first. Now there I used it as during an ending of a piece to in chromatic modulation. Doing this, I'll just play a very simplified version. Half diminished, down a whole step, resolved. That's a simplified version. Half diminished, down a whole step. Now I'm not going to explain the chromatic process in there, that's way beyond the scope of this video. I will go ahead and resize this for you. Now you can just play through this sequence. You could even steal it if you want, I don't care. This will create a constant loop back towards C. Now it will work, remember, 6 times, so you have to actually physically start on something like C sharp minor in order to do the other 6 and get all 12.